Hey everybody, it's Mark again, and I'm going to explain to you what could be the issue if your clock, which is a count wheel system, strikes fine on certain hours, and other times it strikes the hour but it skips and then it stops at the half hour. I didn't discover this, okay? I was telling one of my group members to adjust the part that goes into the count wheel, and he was doing all that, and come to find out, there was a burr on the count wheel that when the lever hit, it hit that burr, so it wouldn't shut off, and then it would go past the hour and shut off after it struck on the half hour. Now, his just so happened to do that at the 9 o'clock position. I was at a friend of mine's house that I help out quite often, and he had a GK clock that was doing the exact same thing. 12 o'clock to 8 o'clock, it struck fine. 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, it struck fine. But on 9 o'clock, it would skip it wouldn't shut off after it struck 9. It would shut off after it struck 9:30. And so this is not always going to be the case. There's other issues that you need to look for. If it's a cuckoo clock, the spring that brings the bird back into the door is what used to push that lever into the count wheel. And so if you have a clock that's not shutting off, it might shut off part of the time, and other times it's not shutting off. The very first thing that I would do is tighten up that spring that brings the bird back into the clock, because it serves two purposes. Another issue could be the lever that goes into the count wheel. It's bent wrong. I tell people it doesn't matter where you grab the count wheel, stick it on the clock to where that lever is touching. Now this is for clocks where the count wheel goes clockwise. Black Forest shield clocks, the count wheel goes counterclockwise. But I tell people to stick that lever anywhere on the count wheel as long as it's touching the left side of one of these tabs. Now, every once in a while, you might have to bend it at 11 o'clock to 5 o'clock position. But most of the time, you just bend it at a 90-degree angle. Now, remember, that lever that goes in the count wheel most of the time is a piece of wire. And if you bend a wire too much, you're going to break it. So don't be sitting there trying to adjust it, because it's probably something else. And I'm going to show you what that something else very well could be. I told you in another video that this clock was running perfect, except for I go to wind everything up and the weight was hitting the floor where the time wasn't hitting the floor. And that says that the clock kept striking and it wouldn't stop. This clock was made around 1870, 1880. It has a wooden plate movement. Yes, I got brand new chains on it. But the first thing you have to do is verify that this spring is doing its job. You see that? It makes that lever go down. It's not a cuckoo clock, all right? So the wheel will, I'm pretty sure it goes backwards, the count wheel. This is the count wheel. I'm going to put it underneath this microscope, and this microscope has to have the light at a certain angle for you to see stuff. This is one of the slots, okay? And I'm going to keep on going around. Another slot, and this clock was striking well from 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock. And right now we're at the 10 o'clock position. 11 o'clock position, 12 o'clock position. Now, do you see this? I'm going to see if I can zoom in better. Do you see this? There's a little burr on that spot. Same way with the 2 o'clock position, the 3 o'clock position, a little bit on the 4 o'clock position, the 5 o'clock position, 6 o'clock position, and it starts clearing up on the 7 o'clock position. And you don't hardly see anything on the 8 o'clock position. I do see a little bit on the 9 o'clock position, but depending on where that burr is, if I get this thing adjusted just right, sorry. If the burr is right here, where it shuts off on the hour, then it's going to skip the hour and go to the half hour. So if you're having issues with your clock and the lever typically rides on the count wheel and then drops, if you move, there's two things that I would suggest doing. I'm going to pretend like this is the lever. Let me shut this thing off. Pretend like this is a lever that drops into the count wheel, okay? If it's too close to the count wheel, it's going to catch that burr. So move it away from the count wheel just a little bit. That way it doesn't catch that burr, but it's still inside the notch of the count wheel. And take a file to the bottom section of the count wheel, all right? Do not run the file on the sides. Let me draw you a picture. Pretend like this is a count wheel. This is one of the notches. Do not, and I repeat, do not file any of this, because you will make that slot wider. And instead of it being, let's say, the 2 o'clock position, if you make it wide enough, it'll be the 12 o'clock position. So you'll have two 12 o'clock positions. Only take a file to the bottom section where that burr is. And again, this is the lever that goes into that count wheel. Yeah, I got it to where it looks like this, or somewhat. Anyway, I suck at drawing. This is the lever that goes into the count wheel. Instead of having it touch the backside of the count wheel, you can bring it out just a little bit, so it still goes into the count wheel, but it's not touching the actual backside of the count wheel. That way you don't have to worry about those burrs. However, remember I told you, if you bend this lever too much, you're going to break it. And that's why I suggest that you file this section right here before you bend that wire. If you have a microscope, I want to be able to see this stuff with the naked eye, even with this stuff right here, unless I use both of these and along with this little magnifying glass and stuck it up close to my face. And I don't like working on clocks that way. That's why when I had to start wearing glasses, I quit working on pocket watches. I have a loop that I can put on my glasses, but in order to to work on something, you have to bring the pocket watch all the way up to your base, and you got to train yourself. With a small screwdriver, while you're looking at the pocket watch up to your base, you're using a screwdriver to loosen, tighten, whatever. The people that work on pocket watches without a digital microscope or without a digital magnifier, I salute them. It is very. Before I started wearing glasses full time, I had 20/20 vision, and I could work on pocket watches without the glasses. I can't do that anymore. And even with the glasses on, I still have to use magnifiers. So, anyway, if your clock is skipping the hours, this is something that you should try. I'm going to put this back on and show you what it's doing. Like I said, because this clock is not a cuckoo clock, the count wheel rotates clockwise, where a cuckoo clock, the count wheel rotates counterclockwise. I might have said that opposite before, but it just got through striking 11:30. Yeah, I pulled the chain off. Stand by. A lot of people want to know how to put the chain back on after it comes off the sprocket for you, and I'll go ahead and show you that here too. A, you want to wind up the chain that's not off, so it's not going to come off on you. B, you turn the clock upside down, and then you give it some slack until you get the chain on, which it's on now. And the reason why this chain came off, this clock was not made with a rear chain guard. It's got a front chain guard, but it doesn't have a rear chain guard, which I'm discovering a lot of clocks are like that. But anyway, it should still be striking. It might be in warning. Stand by. Okay, it's finishing the 12 o'clock, and that worked just fine. Here comes 12:30. Here comes 1 o'clock. 1:30. It could very well be, when I put the count wheel back on, that I moved it one notch one way or the other, and that's why it's working properly now. But you have to go through all these numbers to verify. See, it skipped there. So that means it hit a burr right here on this section. And I'm gonna put a dot there. That way, when I go back around, I want to see if it does it again. But you saw under microscope where all the burrs were. And so, again, it depends on... See, right now, this lever is away from that wheel. And so, it depends on how much play is in this lever. I see right now that there's a lot of play in this lever. And so, my point is, your clock might be catching a burr, and that's why it's not stopping. Did it there too. So instead of me going all the way around again, I'm going to pause this video before I get to this first dot that I made. That way this video isn't 5 hours long, so stand by. Okay, we're coming up on that first dot that I made. So I would suggest that you make dots on your wheel. You know, you can always wipe them off and see if it does it twice in a row. And if it does, then you know it's that particular notch. If it doesn't, if it does a different notch, then you know there's a different issue. And like I said, more than likely, the issue is the spring that makes the bird come back into the door, or in this case, the spring right here, needs tightened up. So here we go. It didn't do it, and so I'm going to look at, like I said, this lever is wobbly. I'm going to look at trying to tighten up this lever. I'm going to tighten up this spring, but I'm also going to file every one of those notches. Like I said, this lever is got too much end shake in it. You're going to find when I take this brass piece off, there's supposed to be a nail, just like there is right here in this lever. You see the notch in this lever? That nail goes in that notch to prevent it from going back and forth too much. So I need to take off that piece of brass. And this is a fairly new piece of brass. So hopefully I don't break it. You should be able to see the notch and the lack of nail preventing it from going back and forth. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that off camera. Another issue with this lever, there's actually a brass piece in here it's a U-shaped brass piece that this lever fits in. But another issue with this lever is, you see the missing wood? This lever fits on a pin. That wire, that pin, is part of this brass bracket, but because it's missing wood, that pin is moving. So I'm going to get a small staple and staple that down some so it don't move. And these are actually staples for cuckoo clocks for the door to attach the wire that's attached to the bird. But anyway, they're small enough that will work. And if you don't have any staples, you can make some out of wire. All you need to do, and I might do it to one of these staples, and they're small, so they're hard for a blind man to get a hold of. But you need to take a grinder, a Dremel, rotary tool, whatever you want to call it, and sharpen up the ends, because they're not that sharp. And you want them sharp, 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 because you're pushing them into the wood. You don't want to break the wood. And here you can see where I put that staple in to hold that nail. And now this lever has end shake, but it's very little end shake. And that's what you want. You don't want a sloppy system. Now I'm going to tighten up that spring. And on this particular system, if you bring this spring up here, this lever is not going to be able to come out of the count wheel. So don't tighten it up too much. It came off the spring. The end is normally curved. That way it can't come off the spring. I'm going to see if I can fix that. Now I've already went all the way around, and you could see where I filed all these notches. I just want to mention in this case, the lever that goes into the count wheel is at a 90 degree with the notches. If it's bent from, let's say the 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock position, or the 11 o'clock to the 5 o'clock position, what happens with this particular system is the lever gets stuck in the notches and it won't strike. So using the intermediate wheel to turn the hands, as I was saying, the lever that goes in the count wheel, if it's bent at an angle, when it strikes, it's going to get stuck on the end of the count wheel, because in this case, I say the count wheel goes clockwise. Even on a cuckoo clock where the count wheel goes counterclockwise, if this lever is bent wrong, we'd say it's bent from the 1 o'clock to the 7 o'clock position, and it drops in a notch on the half hour. When the count wheel goes to move, that lever, it might not go high enough, and it keeps on putting pressure on the count wheel, and eventually it's going to stop your clock, or at least, it'll stop your clock. I know it'll stop the strike, but it should stop the clock also. But anyway, this thing is, I'm going to do a test, a test with the weight, but using the intermediate wheel to rotate the hands. Make sure I'm rotating them in the right direction. As you can see, where before that notch is marked. So I'm going to put the weights on it, because the weight might be a little bit more pressure than my hands. So I'm going to do all that before I put this movement back in the case. And because I adjusted this lever some, like I said, this lever, when the hands rotate, you see it's going up on top. If it don't have end shake like that, it will stop your clock. And so make sure you have end shake, because it's just like on the cuckoo clock where the lift lock lever where the tabs are spread too far apart, and it tries to lift the rack stop lever, but it can't lift the rack stop lever because the rack stop lever bottoms out at the top. I guess that's how you would say it. It will stop your clock, and it won't strike, and it won't tick. It's just, so you squeeze those tabs in, that way the rack stop lever can go up to the top without bottoming out. It's the same way with this. If it doesn't have a little bit of inch shake, it's going to stop your clock. Because I have more power in my hands than the weight does, so to speak. So there's inch shake in it, so I don't have a problem with it, and it shouldn't stop my clock. Now, what I would like to know, and that's why I'm putting the hand on, this hand looks like it was repaired at one time, and somebody's really good, because that's a really thin piece of brass. But I want to know whether or not the hands are at the 12 o'clock position when that lever drops. Looks pretty close. Most antique cuckoo clock chains are around 47, 46, 45, or 48 links per foot, or something like that. But the diameter of the chain is only around 1.1 millimeters thick. And for an modern 8-day cuckoo clock chain, which that's what these are, they're 48 links per foot, which is no big deal, but the diameter is 1.2 millimeters. So the wire is a little bit thicker, and typically the newer the item is, the less material they use. But in chains, for some reason, the wire's thicker. So there will be a little bit of a maybe bounce every once in a while. I don't care. It's my clock. I'm not going to spend the money for chains when these work to my satisfaction. So, turning the intermediate wheel, and I have the movement mounted to my 2x4 here. That was a half hour. And you saw a little bit of a jerk, and it's only because links per foot or the diameter of the wire is a little off. As long as you can live with it, I can live with it. As long as you can live with it, it's your clocks. You do what you want. I'm only explaining to you why it's doing what it's doing. If I were to take a antique cuckoo clock chain that's got a smaller diameter wire to it, and you wouldn't see that jump. Anyway, I'm going to go through every one of these numbers with the weight to make sure it doesn't skip one, and then I'm going to put the movement back in the case if it doesn't. And it shouldn't, because I resolved all the issues. Now, these are the chains that are listed on Time Savers. First of all, you have to know which chain you want, or you're going to have to be purchasing 2 of each. And so I tell people that you could take some Play-Doh and roll it out, and then take the wheel and great wheel and roll it over that Play-Doh. I might do another video explaining all that, but for every indentation that's in the Play-Doh, that is for the spokes on the wheel. You have to count an extra link, because there's a space in between the spokes. There's a link in between the spokes of the wheel. Maybe you could see that. There's a spoke, and then there's a link, and then there's another spoke. And that's why I say rolling out Play-Doh, 12 inches at least Play-Doh, and then or you can roll out 6 inches and multiply times 2, or you can roll out 3 inches and multiply times 4, but it would be best to do at least 6 inches and multiply times 2, because chains are ordered by links per foot. And then, like I said, the diameter of the wire, that's not up to you, okay? That's up to you finding a chain that is for your clock. And in this case, the regular 8-day movements take 48 links per foot. You could buy them in either 70 inches length, or you could buy them in 78 inches length. And they're 1.2 millimeters in diameter. Again, the diameter of the wire, it's not up to you. It is up to the person that makes the chain. A regular 25 one-day movements are 61 links per foot, and the wire diameter is 0.9. And they come in 70 inches, and I believe they also come in 78 inches. I lied. They only come in 70 inches. Herbert 78 inches, 59 links per foot, and and that's a one-day movement. A Herbert 8-day movement. Let me see if I can find it. Herbert 8-day movements. They typically fit an antique clock. So if you don't have anything else, get a Herbert. It's 45 links per foot. But like I said, I'm using a regular 34 chain, and it's 48 links per foot. This is what I love about these clocks, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to put the movement in after you got the chains on. Got the chains on, they're about halfway through, so I'm going to put the chains down through the respected holes. I should have started timing myself. The video will tell you how long it took me to do this. I guarantee you it's a lot faster than modern day movements. Chains are in. Minute arbor goes to the hole. These two staples that are in this wood go through their respected holes. And then pins go through those staples to hold those movement in place. And it's taken me longer to open the door than actually put this pin in. Voila, the movement is in. Now all you have to do is put the hands on. You cannot do that in a modern day movement. Pins hold the thing in place. 2 pins. Not 4 screws, not 8 screws, 2 pins. That is what I love about these clocks. It had nails holding the movement in. I'm going to do away with the nails. One of these 3.75 inch skewers cut in half. It tightens down the movement and you close the door. They have a some kind of copper pin on the other side. It's extremely loose. So with the skewer, you can put it in from the side door without any pliers. Unless you're Superman or Hercules or Hulk Hogan or, the Hulk, you're not taking that movement out. Those skewers will hold that thing just fine. I'm so used to a cuckoo clock where the hole is at the gong is at the bottom, but not in this case, because remember the hammer goes from the bottom up, so you have to put the door in like this. And whether it's going to hit the thing or not, I don't know. It needs adjusted. It's way off. So I need to do that off camera. I hope you are liking this video. Putting the hands on in this clock is just like her. You put the hour hand on first, and then you put this washer that I just dropped that has a beveled edge, and the beveled edge goes up, and it only goes down enough to where the minute hand catches the square tube. Alright, and then another washer will go on, and in some cases a decorative nut that screws down, but in this case, maybe I could zoom in while I'm recording. There's a hole in the arbor that a pin would go in. The hands were put on wrong on this clock. I don't know if I did that or my friend gave me this clock and I think I just hung it up. Maybe I worked on this clock before. I work on so many clocks, it's hard to remember. But anyway, a washer goes down. You see how the hand just barely goes onto that arbor? And now you go, washer goes down, and then a pin that holds that hand in place. And so I need to come up with a washer and a pin. Now I've showed this before using string. And yes, you can look through the side doors if the clock has side doors. You can look through the hole if it has a hole. You can look through the cuckoo door if it has a cuckoo. But this will get you a general idea on where the hammer needs to be placed. I have a tape on this, so I'm going to make the tape tight, put the door on. And then put the tape across the clock. That way I can see where the hammer is. And you can see the hammer if I had a better camera angle. You can see the hammer is right there. And so like I said, the hammer strikes from the top down. And right now I got the tape where the gong is. So I need to bend the hammer down some to because you have to have space between the hammer and the gong to give that vibrant sound. And that is a general idea of where it needs to be. So and that is, after you get the general idea of where it needs to be, that's where you look through the doors or the hole if it has one. The reason why I did that, in this case, they got the hole in the wrong spot. Now you can look through that hole all you want and you're not going to see hardly anything. So it's best to look through the side doors so you can see more of it. And here you can see the hammer. It's not quite in the center of the gong, so it's not going to play that well. So I need to bring it out, and it's about maybe a quarter of an inch or a half inch below the gong. So I'm going to bring it out just a little bit. And this door is kind of loose, so it's not going to be a nice crisp sound anyway. And I'm going to trip the hands to see what it sounds like. I might have to adjust the hammer some more. I didn't put that washer on like I said I was going to, so I'm having trouble getting this hand to work. Stand by. Let me take the hand off. The hammer is too far away from the gong. My tape must have moved on me in the process of doing this video. So when it's done, it's about a half inch away from the gong. So I need to bring the hammer up. The things I do for y'all, more video. In the process, I'm going to break something. Okay, let me try that. And see where the hammer is. It's might be touching the gong now. It is. When it stopped, it's maybe an inch away from the gong. But it's touching the gong, so the hammer needs to be brought down some, or the gong needs to be pushed away from the hammer just a little bit. So I'm pushing the gong away from the hammer, and try that. Still too close. You don't have that vibrant sound. Now, you can only push on this wire so much before it breaks. Keep that in mind. Still too close. Now you got a vibrant sound. It's not as loud as I would like it to be, but it is what it is. So now I need to fix the hand issue, and then I'll get back. Here I got the clock back on my wall. It seems to be in beat. Now my group expert told me the age on this clock between 1870 and 1880, along with this one. And it's stopping. So that's the way it's supposed to. So anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. We're going to do a recap. If you have a clock that has a count wheel system in it, and the strike or cuckoo does well, except for every once in a while, instead of shutting off on the hour, it skips and it shuts off on the half hour. I said every once in a while. If you can't get it to shut up whatsoever, you didn't put it together properly. The lever that goes into the count wheel, there's a brass piece on it that has a notch that goes into the second wheel Pac-Man's mouth when it stops striking, and the third wheel warning pin, depending on whether it's a cuckoo clock or a black forest clock like this. On a cuckoo clock, the wheel goes around clockwise, and it will stop on the end the outside of that lever that goes into the Pac-Man's mouth. A clock like this, it goes counterclockwise, and it hits on the inside of that lever that goes into Pac-Man's mouth to get it to stop striking. Okay, so if it only continues every once in a while, first thing you need to do is check the spring. On a cuckoo clock, the spring serves two purposes. It ensures the bird comes back into the door, and it makes sure that lever that goes into the count wheel goes into the count wheel. On some clocks, there's an extra spring that is over the top of that lever to put pressure on it to make it go into the count wheel. Or it's a different kind of spring, like on the clock I just showed you. On this clock, there's no cuckoo, so the spring is on the outside of the clock, and it pushes on to that lever. On antique cuckoo clocks, the spring is on the post of the clock, and I was just helping out a friend of mine. The spring comes off that post, it goes through a staple, and that staple is pushed down to prevent that spring from sliding back through. Well, his staple was loose and the spring was sliding back through, so I told him, instead, because he didn't want to push the staple down further, I told him just to bend that spring, pull it through and bend it back the other way, and that's what he did, and it solved the issue. The second thing you want to look at is the lever itself. Depending on the clock, again, and most of the time, the lever that goes into the notches needs to be at a 90-degree angle. Every once in a while, it needs to be bent from the 1 o'clock to the from 11 o'clock to 6 o'clock position. And again, it depends on which way the count wheel turns. In this case, the count wheel, not the third wheel, the count wheel rotates clockwise. On a cuckoo clock, the count wheel rotates counterclockwise. And lastly, check for burrs. Do not make the space wider, but flatten out the bottom section. Anyway, I hope this video helps. Please leave me comments. I think I pretty well covered everything. Sorry. On a cuckoo clock, there's two levers. There's a wire that another wire touches to push the bird in, and when that spring is nice and tight, that wire pushes that wire that touches the wire that makes the bird go out. That wire that touches that wire that's attached to that bird post is part of that lever that goes into the count wheel. It has to be on the outside of that wire that touches the bird to make the bird go outside the door, because if that bird wire is on the opposite side, your clock is going to continue to cuckoo, or in a case where it's a cuckoo quail, and the quail setup is the exact same way, the quail is going to keep chirping until the weight hits the floor. So the wire that's attached to the lever that goes into the count wheel, it has to be on the outside of that bird wire. And that bird wire is going to make that wire, it's going to hit that wire in such a force, not really force, but in that it makes the lever that goes into the count wheel go into the count wheel like it's supposed to when it's done striking, cuckooing, chirping, whatever. I think I covered it all. Leave me some comments. Subscribe to my channel. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to all the channels that I mentioned. You know, it takes a lot of time and doing all these videos, and I only do these videos to help you all out. I don't need help in repairing clocks. I've been repairing clocks for 26 years on my own. Every once in a while, I might have a question. I contact a friend of mine who repairs clocks for a living, or I sit and figure it out. But I do these videos to help y'all out so you can save your money, so you can buy your next clock. Because trust me, I know what it's like to get bit by the clock bug or the antique bug. You want your next fix. So when you can afford it, you don't want to pay somebody to repair your clock. You want to buy your next clock and your next clock. And before too long, you're like me and you got way too many clocks to work on. So anyway, may God bless each and every one of you.